we're going to begin with another review exercise today. So get your review exercise booklet out and turn to page 23. Page 23. We're going to take a look at exercise number 26. We've been working on looking at different types of insurance. We talked about, for instance, protecting your house, class. You would need to have
house. Wait.
It's not called house insurance. It's called
home insurance.
Homeowners insurance. Okay, homeowners insurance. And of course, that is in case something bad happens to your house, the insurance company will pay. But remember, with all types of insurance, there's usually an amount that you have to take care of up front if there's damage. We call that the deductible. And once you've paid the deductible, the insurance company will take care of whatever's left over. Now, in health insurance case, the company might not take care of everything left over. They might take care of a percentage of what's left over, and you might take care of the other percentage, which is called your copayment, your copay. The person who has an insurance policy is called the policy holder, right? And so talk about homeowners insurance, and then of course for your car we have car insurance, auto insurance, and there's three different kinds of auto insurance. Remember, there's insurance that takes care of your own car if you crash it. Yeah, if you were to collide with somebody and damage your car, I mean, collision insurance, right? Oh. And then there's the if you're at fault because you initiated the collision and you hurt somebody else or their car or both usually, and you have to take care of them. You have to have. You're at fault. You're liable. You have liability insurance, and that you have to have by law. You don't have to have collision, right? If you aren't smart enough to have insurance on your own car, you wreck your car, okay, you've got to figure out how you're taking care of your own car now. But you have to have liability insurance. And then there's another type in case, it's sometimes referred to as an act of God, were to happen to damage your car, hailstorm, tree, burglar, which is certainly not act of God, it's act of, anyway. But any of those things would be covered by?
I know that one's
you can't quite comprehend what happened, but...
Comprehensive
insurance. There we go. I don't know if that works as well, but it was worth a try. Comprehensive insurance. We talked about car insurance. And again, you pay a deductible, and the insurance company pays the rest. Melvin, you ready for your quiz, sir?
No.
Okay. I'll give you just a couple more minutes while I review with them. We then talked about health insurance, right? And how you have your deductible up front, the copay. I already asked about those. Now, the nice thing about health insurance is most policies have a set number where you will not pay any more than this. Once you've paid this amount, insurance says we'll take care of everything after this. It's usually a pretty high number. It's called your
out-of-pocket something.
It's the most you'll pay. So the out-of-pocket maximum. Out-of-pocket maximum. And so I think that pretty much wraps up all the different kinds of insurance we've talked about so far. But there is one more type of insurance that we need to talk about. That's life insurance. Life insurance. As you're looking there at exercise 26, it says life insurance provides money for a person's family and friends, potentially. Those are called the beneficiaries. Now, you realize a policyholder normally gets to reap his own benefits, right? Like you have a health insurance policy, you're the policyholder, you benefit from the policy. But life insurance only kicks in once you die. So you can't benefit from your own life insurance because you did. So you appoint somebody else. Usually it's a spouse, possibly children as well. Oftentimes that stuff is specified in your will, but typically your spouse, or if your spouse has already died, or perhaps you're single, you would name maybe a close friend. Maybe when you're young and not married, maybe you name your parents because you're like, well, if I were to die, I want them to get the money because they've done so much to help me. Whatever, okay. Your math teacher? Yeah? Just kidding. All right, but anyway, friends, family, usually a spouse, is named the beneficiary. Say that, class? Beneficiary. That's the person who gets the money when you croak. Okay, now there are lots of different variations of life insurance, but two major kinds you see there. Two major types of life insurance are term life insurance and whole life insurance. Now, term life insurance is what most people get, because most people don't have a lot of money, and term insurance is cheap. Here's the way it works. I get insured for a certain amount of time. Maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 20 years. And if I die anywhere in that time, insurance pays my wife a certain amount of money that we agreed to in advance. And I pay them a bunch of money every month. I say a bunch. It's usually not that bad, okay? And if I die, she gets money. And if I don't die, they just made a whole lot of money off of me and they ain't got to do nothing. So, for instance, I'm getting a 20-year, I had a 20-year life insurance policy, and that was 3 kids ago. Now we got more kids. I'm like, okay, I think I need more money than what I originally insured myself for. Because I say my wife would need more money if I were to die, because we got 4 kids now, not 1. Okay, so I upped the amount of money and I restarted a new 20-year term. So anytime in the next 20 years I die, my wife's going to be a wealthy woman. Now, that money's going to go fast because she's got a lot to take care of, but she's going to be all right. If I die in 21 years, we get nothing. All that money's basically wasted. Except there was the peace of mind knowing if I were to die, my wife's not going to be left out to dry with no way of taking care of herself. And that's why, especially I think as a man, gentlemen, it's important to make sure we're insured. Now, on the flip side, if my wife died, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'd do. I mean, child care isn't cheap, and I got to work. Somebody's got to watch the kids. So I did get a life insurance policy on my wife just in case, heaven forbid. But I did get life insurance on her as well. So yes, there is a reason why women would need life insurance also. But especially men, it's our job to provide. The Bible says if a man doesn't provide for his own house, he's worse than an infidel. Okay, so pretty strong language. Okay, so get life insurance, especially once you get married, and particularly once you have kids. Okay. No kids, wife could go work, she'd probably take care of herself okay, but once you got kids, that complicates things a lot. So anyway, that's the way term life insurance works. And on one side, people look at us like, man, that is such a waste. Like, you spend all that money, nobody wants to die anyway, so you spend all that money on insurance, and like, I'm paying about $20 a month. I mean, it's $240 a year. After 20 years, that's, you know, what is that, $4,000, $5,000, something like that. That's a lot of money that I ain't got now. But there was peace of mind. You're paying for peace of mind. However, if you're like, no, I just cannot bring myself to throw away money, I'm going to get a life insurance policy that once I pay into it, no matter when I die, I'm good. It's called whole life insurance. You see that their whole life insurance covers the policyholder no matter when he dies, and the premiums remain the same his entire life. Now, right now, I told you my premium's going to be about $20 a month. Okay? And that's not bad. $20 a month is pretty affordable, especially compared to a lot of other things you could do with those $20. So that's not bad. Now, in 20 years, if I go get a new policy, it's not going to be $20 because I'm going to be that much older. And I'm going to be that much closer to dying. So in 20 years, it might be $100 a month. Whereas if I get a whole life insurance policy, I might be able to lock in for, let's just say, $60 a month, which is still quite a bit of money, but it never changes. And it doesn't matter when I die. I don't have to worry about getting another policy. But it's $60 a month. I'm poor. All right? So I can't do $60 a month. So I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get term life insurance. I'm going to make sure that as long as my kids are small or, you know, high school age, okay, we're covered. And we'll worry about that later. But right now, at least I'm covered while the kids are young. The kids can't help take care of mom because they don't have jobs. Mom's taken care of. So that's why I went with term. But I could definitely see why people, especially if you had a little bit more money to spend, you might want to go with the whole life insurance. Questions on how the life insurance works. So you agree to a certain amount of money. Maybe it's $250,000, maybe it's $1 million. If you're really rich, really want to take care of your wife, $2 million, whatever. Okay, you pick how much money. Now, the more you insure for, the higher the premiums, okay? So I was insured for $250,000. And we had 3 more kids. I'm like, okay, I don't know that that's going to cover her for, you know, several years because I don't want her having to do anything. Just keep things going, right? So went up to $500,000. Okay, so it cost me, you know, $5 a month more. I think it's a good investment, $5 a month, another $250,000. Okay, it's good peace of mind for me, right? I know if I were to die, finances aren't going to be your headache. She's going to have a whole lot of other headaches, but finances won't be one of them. She's going to be taken care of, and that's the idea. Questions on this? All right, you got just 3 problems to work. Go ahead and work them. There at your seats. All right, Melvin, ready or not, here it comes. You just need a pen. let's go and take a look at these together. And Joshua was first. Joshua, this is kind of where I was when I was 25. It says Mr. Billings, but it's kind of my story, at least back then. Mr. Billings purchased a 20-year term life insurance policy with $250,000 of coverage. He was 25 years old when he purchased the policy. His monthly premium is $15. How much will Mr. Billings pay over the next 20 years if he does not die within that time?
$300.
That's what I got too.
Well, how many years is he paying, class?
20.
20 years. And he pays how much per month?
$15.
$15 per month. That's not per year. So what do we need to do with the 15, class?
Multiply it by
Multiply that by 12. This is his monthly premium. We need to find out how much per year, right? So you pay every month for insurance. He's not paying just $300. He's not paying a whole lot, but it's definitely more than $300. So what is 15 times 12? Find it quickly, call it out when you've got it. 180. So he's paying $180 a year. Does that make sense? Times 20 years, how much should we have gotten? Quickly find it.
3,600.
3,600. There we go. Or you could just take the number Joshua got and multiply that by 12 because he found, yeah, smart. So 3,600. Now think about that. He's only paying 3,600. If he dies, his wife gets $250,000, $250,000. Now, the life insurance company is gambling then that there are going to be about 100 people of which only one would die. So out of every 100 people his age, only one of them would die, so they're still making money. That's kind of how they play the figures. There's a guy called an actuary who crunches all the numbers and records the data and does the research and finds out what they need to charge to make money. Because they're not just there to be a blessing to you, they're there to make money, okay? So they're actually making money while taking care of your family. By the way, I will throw this out there. These are the numbers for me, but I got the absolute best rate available because I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do crazy stuff like fly airplanes, which is fun, but you gotta have a higher life insurance premium if you fly airplanes. You know, I low stress job, you know, I'm not like, for instance, a construction worker on skyscrapers. Okay, depending on different things like that, your rates would go higher or lower. One of the biggest though is tobacco use and other drug use. Tobacco and drug use will really raise those premiums because you're at a higher risk of dying, you're at a risk of worse health. So yeah, living a clean, healthy life the way God intends you to live does have its benefits, even outside the realm of the spiritual. It can impact your finances as well. All right, Mr. Johnson purchased the same policy as Mr. Billings, but he was 35 years old when he purchased the policy. So since he's an old man, his policy costs him $22 a month. He's not old, but he's older than I am. All right, his monthly premium is $22. How much more will Mr. Johnson pay over the next 20 years than Mr. Billings? Now, if we forgot to account for the month thing last time, we probably forgot to account for the month thing this time. But the easy way to account for the month is to multiply by 12. Whatever you got times 12. So call it when you've got it. If you didn't account for months before, you would have to just multiply your answer by 12, and that would take care of the month thing.
5,280.
How much more is he paying every month?
Wait.
He's paying 22.
More every month.
How much more per month? So, okay, so Joshua, you would take your 5,280, that's how much he's paying, and minus the 3,600, and that could get you your answer.
84.
$1,680.
There we go, 1,680 more. Now, here's the easy way to do it. He's paying $7 a month more, right? Are you listening? He's paying $7 a month more, right? $7 a month. There's 12 months in a year. How much more per year? 84. That's per year. But how many years is the policy? 20. So you multiply by 20. That's the way I got the answer, was the 1,680. But your way worked. You find out how much total he's paying, subtract how much total the other guy's paying. You could subtract. That would work as well.
Where did you get the 5,280?
He found how much Mr. Billings was actually, or Mr. Johnson was actually going to pay for 20 years. So he took the 22 a month times 12 times 20 to find out total amount. Just that's basically what we did for Mr. Billings, right? This is how much total Mr. Billings pays, total how much will Mr. Johnson pay, assuming the other guy dies, and then you subtract to find, okay, because he waited since he was older, he paid over the 20 years $1,680 more. Now, this is where I hope this is not talking about me, because I mentioned, Mr. Billings is kind of what I was paying. This is my situation. I'm really hoping this is not my situation here. Mr. Billings dies at the age of 38. How much more will his beneficiary receive than he paid into the policy? Well, if he died at 38, how many years did he have the policy?
Until he was 45.
No. When did he get the policy?
When
When he was 25. But if he dies at 38, how many years has he had the policy?
Oh, 13.
13 years. But remember, he doesn't pay $15 a year, he pays $180 a year, right? So for 13 years, he's been paying $180 each year. That will tell you how much he paid for his life insurance. If you haven't found that number yet, go ahead and find it. How much he paid for those 13 years. Once he dies, of course, you don't have to keep making payments once you croak, right? Once you die, you don't make any more payments. How much did he pay, Lana?
2,340.
He only ended up paying $2,340. Now, here's the question. How much does the insurance company pay his wife?
252,300.
$250,000. The policy was a $250,000 coverage, right? So the coverage is how much the wife gets. She gets $250,000. She gets $250,000. So he only paid $2,340. She gets $250,000. So obviously she's getting way more than he had to pay, right? How much more did she get? In other words, if you're looking at it as a business transaction, which isn't always a great way to look at things, but if you are, how much of a profit did she make off of his policy? How much of a profit did she make off of his policy?
247,660.
Good, $247,660 is correct. And by the way, this is one reason, Joshua, when you get life insurance, you better make sure she really loves you, because otherwise she's got 250,000 reasons to kill you. Now, technically, if your wife kills you and tries to collect the insurance, they'll arrest her and she'll go to jail and all that kind of stuff. But just saying, she's alive. Make sure she loves you and would rather have you alive. Anyway, you're sure you wouldn't like to drive really fast right here? Here, I'll get out and watch. Marry a woman who loves you. Anyway, that's a side note. Questions on life insurance. Does this exercise help you understand life insurance a little bit better? And that's the purpose of these exercises. All right, let me go and collect those from you. And if you would, turn in your textbooks to page 433. Page 433. Page 433. And I want you to do numbers 18 through 20 at the top of the page. Page 433. And do numbers 18 through 20 at the top of the page. Just some quick review over probability. And then we will go over what we were talking about yesterday. A quick probability review before we go over graphing. Ooh, New England Patriot colors. Take a look at this. There were 10 marbles in the jar. Yeah, jar. 10 marbles in the jar, and if there were 4 gray ones, 10 total, what's the probability of gray, class?
2 to 5.
2 to 5. 2 to 5 when we reduce. What about blue or gray, class?
7 to 10.
7 to 10. By the way, you could either add at the beginning and say 7 out of 10, or you could say 3 to 10 plus 4 to 10, and that would give you 7 to 10. Probability of yellow?
0.
0. There is no yellow in there. What about blue or gray or red?
1.
You're guaranteed one of them, right? I mean, yeah. Unless somebody put something else in there with it, but anyway. And what's the probability of not gray?
3 to 5.
3 to 5. Because after all, if gray is 2 to 5, you take 1 or 5 to 5 minus 2 to 5, it would give you 3 to 5. Or you can say, well, these two are not gray, so that's 6 to 10, 3 to 5. Either way works, right? But remember, finding complementary probability, probability of not, you can also just subtract from 1. Let's take a look at number 19. Brianna rolled a 6-sided number cube, that's a die, twice. How many possible outcomes are there, Lana?
36.
36, because the first time she rolls, there's 6 possibilities. The second time she rolls, also 6 possibilities, 36 possible outcomes. And number 20, needing to repaint a wall, Henry had to choose between 5 main colors and 2 accent colors. The main color could either be flat or glossy. How many possible outcomes, how many possible paint combinations are there? Joshua?
20.
20. 5 colors, 2 more colors, and 2 finishes. Gives you 20 when you multiply. Any questions on that?
20.
5 times 2 times 2?
Oh, I just.
All right, does it make sense? All right, so you know where the 5, the 2, and the 2 came from. Okay, just making sure. Didn't want to leave you hanging there. All right, let's go ahead and review some things we talked about last time. Talked about graphs, and I said, in a way, you can think of a graph as simply what, Lana?
Picture.
Kind of like a picture, right? A picture of something we talked the entire chapter about. Statistics, right? It's a picture of statistics, a picture of data. And nobody wants to look at numbers, okay? Numbers are scary. Math is frightening. Okay, maybe not quite that bad, but, okay, Glenn's nodding. But people would a whole lot rather look at a picture. So it's just a picture of data. We talked about 3, you could argue 4 different types of graphs yesterday. What were the 3 major types of graphs we looked at?
Bar, line, circle.
Good, bar, line, and circle. And within the bar graph, we said you could make a special bar graph where each bar is broken into parts. Do you remember what we called that? Good, a stacked bar graph. We said with the line graphs, there's actually 3 different kinds.
Broken, curved, and straight.
Good, broken, curved, and straight. Now, in general, though, what's the purpose of any line graph, Lana?
Show changes over time.
Good, changes over time. And if the changes are random and intermittent, class, we would use a broken line graph. However, if there's a gradual fluctuation, we would have to use a curved line graph to show that it's not sudden changing. And then if there was just a continual progression, straight line graph. We said if we want to make comparisons between various things that are related but largely independent,
A bar graph.
a bar graph. If we wanted to show percentages of the relationship of parts to the whole,
Circle graph.
a circle graph, also called a pie chart. It is called a pie chart or pie graph. It's okay. And pie sounds more interesting, more tasty at least. Pie day is coming up, by the way. 2 weeks from Tuesday. Last Tuesday. Anyway, train of thought derailed. Oh yes, if we wanted to make comparisons of different groups, but wanted to show parts of the whole within those groups, that's when we might use a stacked bar graph. Remember, you're comparing the bars, but within each of the bars, you're making more comparisons to each other. So the stacked bar graph is kind of a double whammy, if you will, a multi-use graph. We said every graph has to have something that tells you what it's about.
Scale. Or labels.
Scale.
Tells you what the graph is about.
Oh, the title.
The title. The title. And the title ought to go where?
At the top.
At the top. Put it at the top so it's the first thing you see. This is what this graph is talking about. And now you do also need to know, like, for instance, if there's bars or something, okay, what all these different bars are talking about. And so there also need to be labels. Or maybe there's like color coding or something. And so maybe you would have something called a legend that basically does the same thing as the labels. It tells you, okay, what's actually being compared or what's actually being shown here on this graph. And not with a circle graph, but with a line or bar graph, you also need to have a... You wouldn't need it with a circle graph. But for the line and the bar graph, you need a scale that shows you what the length of the bars are talking about. Now, I did say specifically for a bar graph, you better have what starting number on your scale?
0.
It better start at 0. Line graphs are purposely there to show changes. So the line graph isn't as much, but when you're making comparisons, you need a reference point of 0, because otherwise, as we showed yesterday, Lana can make herself look like she's wildly more popular than Joshua, when in fact, we love all of you the same. All right. Now, with these, with the scale, it's helpful to have lines that kind of run up or run across from those numbers on the scale. So we would want to have grid lines. And if their grid lines are far apart, maybe some minor grid lines would help as well. We said, though, that a bar graph and a line graph should never reach
to the top.
To the top if it goes up, or to the end if it's a horizontal, right? Why is it important the graph not hit the end or hit the top?
Just because.
For instance, if I was showing how many people voted in an election and the graph went up to 10 and your bar went all the way to the very top,
It can be confusing.
people might think, well, what if you got more than 10 and they just ran out of room?
Oh.
But if the graph goes up to, say, let's say you actually did get 10 votes, but by going up to 12 on the graph, and now the bar reaches 10, there's no confusion. We know you really got 10. So it makes sure that there's no ambiguity or question of, well, maybe they just ran out of room, so they kind of round it down or cut it off. No, it really is the number. So we want to make sure we don't reach the end. Now, again, we're not really drawing graphs in this class, but if you ever were to, primarily, nowadays, most people do their graphs in Excel, and you already know how to do that, and Excel's going to make sure it doesn't hit the top or the end. Now, with the scale, sometimes 1 doesn't mean 1. Sometimes 1 might mean 1,000 or 100 or something, right? So in addition to the scale, there might be something on there that helps to make sure we know exactly what the numbers mean or exactly who or what these labels are. So in addition to the scale and the labels, we may also include axis titles. Remember the horizontal line and the vertical line, they're called axes. So an axis title might also show who or what's being talked about there. Let's go and look at page 437 now. Page 437, so flip over a few pages. And let's go and take a look at several questions here. We're not going to go over all of these, but number 1, what type of graph relates each category to the whole class? Circle graph. What type of graph shows changes in data over time? Line graph. Number 3, what's used on the numerical axis of a bar graph, numerical axis, to identify the quantity each bar represents? The scale, right? The numbers would be the scale. Which grid lines are not numbered? The minor grid lines. Anywhere there's a number, that would be considered a major grid line. But if you put more that aren't numbered, just because, for instance, you look down at the bar graph right below this, man, you don't want to write every 5 on there, do you? No. So minor grid lines are helpful because it saves you time of having to number anything, but there's still a line there you can tell what's up. What is the name for a key that indicates which category each color of a graph represents?
Legend.
Which type of bar graph has several categories on a single bar?
Bar graph. Wait.
Which type of bar graph?
Stacked.
A stacked bar graph. Good. Technically, you could make one long ways, but usually if you're going to break the bar into pieces, you normally use a vertical bar graph there. And which type of line graph? It's a chain of connected line segments. A broken line graph. Those next 3 things are something we're going to talk about in a later lesson. Let's drop down to number 11 now. And you've got 5 questions about that graph asking about the mean or average salary of different types of engineers. So take just a couple minutes. Do number 11, parts A through E. And remember, this is the mean, not the median. So this is very sensitive to an outlier. If there's a particular few people in that particular field that are making a whole bunch of money more than everyone else, it's going to skew the mean. So this isn't necessarily what you can expect when you start in this occupation, but that's some pretty good pay right there. With pay like that, you can afford to make generous donations to math teachers, for instance. Just something to consider if you were to go into that line of work. Put it toward a worthy cause, I promise you. I've never been to Hawaii, and Chloe wants to go. I used to have what I called the Mr. Nadaski Goes to Hawaii Fund. When people would like rent something from me or buy something from me because they didn't have what they needed for class, I say, yeah, thank you. It goes to the Mr. Nadaski Goes to Hawaii Fund. But before I saved it up enough to go to Hawaii, it became the Diaper Fund. And we haven't escaped Diaper Fund yet. Stuck there for a few more years. Let's go and take a look at these together. And letter A says, which engineering occupation? And notice sanitation engineer is not on here. Like trash man? Okay, that's not on here. So like genuine engineering jobs you would go to college for. Which engineering occupation has the lowest salary? Lana?
Environmental.
Good, the environmental engineer. His salary is just a little bit lower than some of the others. There's actually 3 different engineers that are like pretty much make all the same amount of money. The mechanical, the civil, the biomedical, okay, all pretty much making right about the same average salary. Letter B, how many occupations have a salary between $95,000 and $120,000 a year? Joshua? 4 of them. Good, the 4 big ones, if you will. The other 5 are all, like I say, kind of, or the other 4 are all kind of even, but those 4 stand out. How many occupations have a salary below $85,000 a year, Lana? None of them. Okay, engineering looks better and better. Letter D, just only if that's what God has for you. I wouldn't be happy being an engineer because God didn't call me to that. I'd rather be happy than make a ton of money. Though, no, money can't buy happiness. It can't. There's a whole lot of rich people committing suicide out there. Money doesn't buy happiness. I have more fun teaching. Anyway, what's the approximate salary of a mechanical engineer? Joshua? $90,000. And which of the following would have the higher combined income? 2 chemical engineers or a computer engineer and a civil engineer? Which would have the higher income? Lana?
2 chemical engineers.
The 2 chemical engineers. Good. They're both making about $105,000 a year, so that's $210,000. The computer is making about $115,000. Civil engineer making about $90,000. That comes to $205,000, just a tiny bit less. So yeah, the 2 chemical engineers would be making more. Questions on that? All right, turn the page. Number 12. Go ahead and answer questions A, B, C, and D off of that stacked bar graph. Go ahead and answer questions A through D based off that stacked bar graph. Number 12. Let's go and take a look at these together. And letter A, for which year was 7th grade the largest? Lana?
2016.
In 2016. Now, if you think about it, this makes sense, because notice in 2015, big 6th grade. 2016, big 7th grade. 2017, big 8th grade. It's the same group, right? So it makes sense that that big section would just kind of move up the chain, as it were. Letter B, what was the difference in size between 6th and 7th grades in 2015? Joshua? Difference between 6th and 7th. Lana, help?
I got 8.
Well, let's look at it. How many students were in 6th grade?
20.
How many were in 6th grade, class?
32.
30.
Yeah, it looks like 32, right?
32.
Because each bar is 4, like the minor grade lines are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, right? So, yeah, if 4 pers 32 6th graders minus. Now, where is the total? Like 7th grade leaves off at what point?
32. I mean,
They start at 32, but they end at
52.
52, right? So so between 32 and 52 is the bar. So how many people are actually in there then if it goes from 32 to 52?
Yeah, 20.
20 people.
20.
That's 20 7th graders.
Oh.
So 32 6th graders and 20 more 7th graders, right? How many more 6th graders were there though?
12.
12, right? So combined, yeah, they went up to 52. 20 of them 7, 32 were 6. But how many more of them were 6th graders? There were 12 of them. Does that make sense? So, okay, so 0 to 32 means there's 32. And then 32 to 52 means there's 20 of them. So that's kind of how you read that bar graph. So where's the end of the bar graph? It looks like right around 73-ish, maybe?
Yeah, about 73.
73. Okay, so if there were 73 students total, okay, we already accounted for 32 in this gap, 20 more here. How many would have been in this range?
21.
21, right? So there were 21 of this, 20 of that, 32 of the other. Make sense? All right, letter C. What percent of students in 2017 were in 7th grade? Okay, how many 7th graders are in there? Where does 7th grade start?
0.
No, 7th grade, that's 6th grade starts at 0. Where does the 7th grade start?
32.
30, ooh, I don't have it starting at 32. I've got it starting at about 26.
Next one.
No.
Right, starts about 26, and it goes up to 42. That look about right? So how many 6th grade or 7th graders were there in 2017 total? If that piece of the bar goes from 26 to 42, that means there were 16 of them. Out of, divided by, how many total kids in the middle school? This is really easy. 80, right? 80 total in the middle school. What fraction is that? 16 to 80. Let's divide both of them by 4.
To get 4 over 40. 20. I mean,
4 over 20, that's 1 out of 5, that's 20%, 0.2. Or you can just do the division and get 20% that way, which is what I think Lana did.
Yeah, you just divide both
The 16.
by 8.
Oh, that would have worked a lot faster. Divide by 8, yeah, duh.
I didn't even.
All right, did the 2 tenths, 0.2, 20%. Smart thinking, Lana. Show off. All right, letter D. What year had the largest enrollment overall?
27.
Definitely 2017. Good. Number 13. Homework number 13. Actually, let's do this together for sake of time. We are running out of time. What are the 3 most used languages on the internet? Obviously, class.
English, Chinese, and Spanish.
Yeah, English, Chinese, and Spanish. I mean, those 3 together just absolutely dominate the landscape, don't they? Of the listed languages, which is the smallest group that's actually listed?
Other.
Well, other isn't a language, so which was the smallest that's listed?
Japanese.
Japanese, right? I mean, maybe Indian or something is on there included with the other, and there's some various ones, but the smallest listed language would be Japanese. Let's see, if there were 125 people randomly selected, how many would we expect to use Arabic? If we had 125 people, how many would be speaking or using Arabic on the internet? take a random selection of 125 people, we would expect 10. 8% of 125. Right, because 8% of people are using Arabic, right? That's what it says, Arabic, the light green, 8%. And so if we had 125 people, 8% of that would be 10 people would probably be using Arabic. Let's look at number 14, credit card debt. Oh boy. Average credit card debt among Americans. Hey, we're actually on the downtrend there back in 2013. This is from years ago. They may not have all the data yet for anything more recent. When was the greatest credit card debt in this time span?
2009.
Yeah, and by the way, there was a big recession going on right at the end of 2007, 2008, 2009. Makes sense, credit card debt would go up. What was the lowest credit card debt recorded on the graph?
2001.
2001. Looks like it's a little bit lower, yeah, than 2005 was. And between 2001 and 2002, how much of an increase was there in average credit card debt? Between 01 and 02, what was the average increase in credit card debt? How big is each minor grid line?
About
How much is a minor? 500, right? A minor grid line's worth 500. So in 2001, it's just under 4,500 then, right? It's maybe 4,200-ish, 4,300 maybe, 4,250, but I want round numbers. And in 2002, it's just under 6,000, but it's above like 55, so maybe 5,700-ish, something like that. So how big of a change is that? About 1,400. Both of those were rounded, right? So if you had said 1,300, if you had said 1,500, even maybe 1,600, anywhere in there, it's kind of vague here. But yeah, right around there, right, that $1,500 mark-ish would be the increase in credit card debt from 01 to 02. Questions on how to read graphs and interpret data from them?
It's
line
just
graphs
kind
are
of
kinda
the
hard.
stacked
The line
bar
ones?
graph.
Yeah, so the key with the stacked bar graphs again is break it into into where each piece ends, and that'll allow you to find the size of each piece.
Yeah, it's just like the middle part, because like it says the difference in size between the 6th and 7th grades in 2015. And you subtract 52 minus 32, you get 20.
Well, okay, but again, this is the number of 8th, 7th, and 6th. So what's the difference in the 6th graders and 7th graders?
Oh.
Right, that's what it was asking. The number, you have to find the number of them first, then you can find the difference between the number of 6th graders and number of 7th. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right.
The line graphs are kind of hard.
Quick question on the line graph.
No, like.
Well, again, you're finding when it says like the lowest, you're trying to find the absolute lowest point on the graph. If it says highest, of course, highest point on the graph. You can tell there were a couple of years where it dropped. You can see it.
Just like.
Is this more?
Finding the size of the minor grid lines. Hold on, Josh. You're finding the size of the minor grid lines?
It's like the letter C on 14.
Yeah, because it was in between grid lines, kind of made it hard to read and stuff like that. You're going to practice with this in your homework this evening. For homework, I need you to do page 425. Page 425, numbers 1, 2, and 5. Page 425, numbers 1, 2, and 5. And then on pages 440 to 441, numbers 1, 2, and 3. So page 425, 1, 2, and 5. Page 440 to 441, numbers 1, 2, and 3. You're going to practice reading graphs again tonight for homework, and we'll go over that tomorrow. So hopefully get some practice getting better at interpreting graphs. Any questions at all? All right. You are dismissed. Have a wonderful rest of your day.